Next big topic, gents, to switch our focus onto is the Premier League. The title race is kind of early to be speaking about this, but we can clearly see that the four real giants have separated themselves early in the season. And my question to you guys is what I think is a really intriguing one. Which player will be the most important in the title race this season? I'm talking about superstars or maybe someone under the radar. But with Ronaldo, Lukaku coming to the Premier League, some big players come back from injury, there seems like a lot of contenders who will be the most important player in the title race. So the clear top four, obviously Man United, Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City, they've started the season as well. I think this is the closest title race we've had in recent history. But Nick, I'm going to come to you for this really easy question. Which player do you think is going to be the most important in the title race this season, from what you've seen so far?
I think this is about the hardest, most difficult question you could ask, because I have names flooding my head. I have 3 Manchester United names flooding my head. So, normally you might want to point to, Kevin De Bruyne or some star whose power may take it over. But now I'm thinking, well, can Paul Pogba keep this up? Can we get a full season out of Paul Pogba? Because maybe that's my answer. Or do I want to say Marcus Rashford? Because when he comes back and completes what they do, we haven't seen him yet, but that's such an X factor. Or is it Rafael Varane? So and that's just United. So I'll leave all the other teams to you. There's strikers, there are midfielders, there are center backs, and you just end up thinking to yourself, this is going to be an absolute riot. And I think we talked about it in that meeting that we had a couple of days ago, where we said to ourselves, is this the situation where it isn't so much about beating up on the lower competition, because we can pretty much, even in the Premier League, assume that's going to happen? And will these big games between the top 4 rivals come to be so much more important, as goofy as that sounds, than they have in recent years when there were only 2 teams going for the title?
Andy, I think we can almost say that there's a 25% chance for most of these top 4 to win it. It does seem very close. I mean, do you have any player in particular that you think is going to be the difference this season? Because Ronaldo, Lukaku, they've had great starts to the season, and they seem to have really changed the dimension for Manchester United and Chelsea in particular.
Yeah, I do have an answer. It's not a newly signed player. It might be the most boring answer, but I think it's always the correct answer when you talk about the most important player in any title race, because Chelsea are always going to be involved in it. It's N'Golo Kante. If he is going to be healthy this season, and he is going to be world-class, best midfielder in the world, N'Golo Kante, to go with the defense that they have, to go with the attack that they now have with Romelu Lukaku leading the line there, that links the defense to the attack to the defense. It makes them virtually impossible to score a goal against, and at that point, they just need a goal. It's just, Kante feels... I guess you could say this for every manager, because you always want somebody who's intelligent, who works hard, who has the stamina, and just every characteristic that N'Golo Kante has, the personality and all those things. But he feels so perfect to what Thomas Tuchel wants from that team. And in the same way that we talked this week a little bit about Tyler Adams for RB Leipzig, being a Swiss Army knife and can do a lot of different roles and a lot of different jobs in a lot of very specific matchups when you have different needs, he can almost become not a pet project for Thomas Tuchel, but the person he can give just the worst assignment to for a week against Manchester City, against Manchester United, against Liverpool, and say, I don't have to worry about that now, because N'Golo Kante is going to take care of Kevin De Bruyne or Paul Pogba or whoever it is. I just see him being so impactful this season if he can get himself healthy, and that's the thing that I think takes Chelsea from being, in my mind, Premier League title favorites to maybe even Champions League title favorites again to retain the title.
So I'm glad you went that direction, because we focus so much on the attacking players, right? Ronaldo's, Lukaku's, Mo Salah's, De Bruyne, and obviously Jack Grealish now at Manchester City too. And that's fantastic. But we've seen it with City. We've seen it with Liverpool. When you lose big defensive players, that has a huge impact in those tight games over a season, where you instead of winning 1-0 away at Burnley, you might draw or you might even lose. So I'm looking at Virgil van Dijk for Liverpool or Ruben Dias for Manchester City. or even like Nick said, Rafael Varane, if he kind of finds his feet a bit quicker than he is doing right now, and his partnership with Maguire could be even bigger, I'd argue, than Ronaldo's goals at the other end for Manchester United, because we know that they're good at scoring goals. That's not been a problem for them with Bruno Fernandes, Martial, Rashford, Jadon Sancho, everybody else. So, yeah, I do actually think it probably is a boring answer as well, but Van Dijk and Diaz are probably the most important for their respective teams and staying fit and healthy. But I do think there's an argument that Romelu Lukaku is probably the single most important player in the title race if he does stay fit. I think that Chelsea, from all those games that they drew or tight wins, he just turns them into a 2 or 3 goal win or just edges them past teams. Nick, do you agree with that? Do you think Lukaku is really the main man?
I do. I tend to think that, although devil's advocate says to me, or red devil's advocate, when I mentioned Varane earlier, let's look back at the last couple seasons and who got the most love for turning a team season around. And it was Diaz and it was Van Dijk before that. And even now, I think maybe the savviness of stats are getting us to the point where, look at Jorginho being named Champions League Player of the Year, right? Mm-hmm. So, but at the same time, it's just about finishing. And we mentioned it under Lampard when he kept running Tammy Abraham out there, who turns out is pretty good as well. What if they got their chances converted? How many assists would Pulisic have? And, wait till Werner gets his feet under him. Well, that didn't happen. Lukaku has 29 goals this year between club and country, 2021 in a calendar year. He's a monster. And what I love about what Tuchel said about him after the game, after they beat Zenit 1-0, is he doesn't get frustrated when the ball's not going to him. He understands he's going to get a chance, and he's completely comfortable with the idea that he's going to take it. He is going to get that chance, and he's going to score. And so far, we haven't seen him miss. So this is a striker who has been through it all. And I want to say that what Chelsea did in winning the league last year for their mentality, Lukaku ending Juve's reign of a decade atop Serie A might have been the same sort of experience for him. And I can do anything and look out for me. And to me, there are some characteristics that make him more of a Robert Lewandowski type than a Ronaldo type. And I just love what I'm seeing in him.
Andy, have you changed your opinion from your pre-season title selection? Because I know we both had Chelsea, but personally, I'm looking at Manchester City and seeing the goals that they're scoring and how well they're playing going forward without a proper number 9, although Ferran Torres and Gabriel Jesus done a decent job so far this season. But are you changing your mind on your title pick based on the first 4 weeks of the season and seeing some of these big names coming in and Liverpool playing so well and Man United playing well in the Premier League at least?
No, I'm not going to be swayed by all the pretty shiny things, Joe. Sure, the other teams have looked good to start the season. So have Chelsea. What have Chelsea done to make me think, oh, I see something there that I think maybe they won't? No, there's nothing from them. They've only gotten stronger since we made the prediction. Obviously, the Lukaku signing came in just before the end of the window. Conte has been barely involved so far this season just due to fitness and injury issues. So I just feel like there's still so much more to come from Chelsea, and that's crazy to say for the team that is the reigning and defending European champions, the team that is maybe the odds-on favorite to win the Premier League, that there still feels like there's another level, maybe 2, for this team to go to. Because when you have to remember, we get so caught up in the big names making transfers and signing for new clubs that we forget that sometimes it takes a little bit, usually about 6 months or so, for a player to kind of just acclimate and bed themselves into their new environment, the new team, everybody around them, and then they really start to hit their stride in the second half of the season. If this is what Lukaku looks like when he's still trying to get his feet under him, when he's just off a plane coming in from Milan, then I would really like to see what Lukaku is going to look like in March and April and May as we get towards the business end of the season. So I still see it as Chelsea's, maybe not Chelsea's race to lose because the margins are so thin between all 4 of these teams. But I do think that if, barring a serious injury that completely limits their ability to field their best strength 11 or even anybody from the best 18 in that squad, I think is really going to be Premier League winning worthy. So it's still Chelsea for me.
Nick, you staying with Man City, mate?
Can you ask me in 3 weeks?
Nope.
And the reason I say that, no, I'm staying with Man City, but I look at the way there's so many things that can go against you in a season, injuries, this, that, the other thing. I'm just looking at their fixtures, and I don't know if you've eyeballed what's ahead, but after Southampton and Wickham in the League Cup, it's Chelsea away in the Premier League on a Saturday, Tuesday at PSG, the following weekend at Liverpool.
Ooh.
And so that's what I say. It's not that I don't think they won't win. I wonder if Pep will mail in the PSG game and just assume he'll get out the group otherwise, because those are two huge 6-pointers for the title race. That's who's going to have that stretch this year of that caliber team 3 times in a row in 8 days.
Yeah. Twitter is not ready for Pep to throw Man City PSG in the Champions League. The Twitter will burn itself down if he doesn't give the spectacle that should be that game.
It will be a spectacle, no doubt, and so will the rest of the Premier League season with these top 4 battling it out. Okay, let's finish this segment with one player then. We've talked about it. Who is the most important player in the Premier League title race this season? Just one name. Give me one name. Andy, go.
Yeah, it's Conte for me. Just everything that he's going to mean for that team and the experience that he has. Maybe that's the one thing for Chelsea that kind of puts them over the top is they have the experience of having just very recently gone on and won the Champions League. I know Liverpool are a couple years removed, but they have that winning feeling at the moment, and they've got a manager who I feel like is the most motivated of anybody in the Premier League.
Nick, who's your man?
That's the guy from Le Havre's academy. I even say that right? Paul Pogba. We don't have to think of him that way. Yeah, I think Paul Pogba, as we've seen in these first few weeks, has the pressure off of him in terms of having to be an attacking force, and has just turned himself into a playmaking force. And it's him to me. I just think when he's at his best, which we saw with Juve a few years ago, he's on another level.
Wow, I didn't expect that, but yeah, I can see what you're saying on that. And for myself, I'm sticking with Romelu Lukaku. I think that Chelsea had absolutely everything to win the title, aside from a 25-goal-a-season plus striker. Now they have that. If he stays fit, then he's the difference maker for me, because Chelsea have everything else. They're the reigning European champions for a reason, and I just think that he is the last piece of the jigsaw at Stamford Bridge. So enjoyed that chat, lads. That was really good early in the season. And make sure to head over to Pro Soccer Talk on NBCSports.com for all the latest previews, recaps, analysis, stream links, how to watch the games, because you are not going to want to miss any of this action, especially early in the season with so many big heavyweights colliding in the Premier League.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch highlights all season long, and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend at 7 a.m. Eastern. And for even more content, head over to Peacock, where we've got live games, original series, and a dedicated round-the-clock Premier League channel featuring studio shows, classic matches, and much more.